Your evacuation is not there, financing is not there, fuel is not there. What is this architecture? So, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. The foremost thought that occurred to me when I went through the bill was that we are bringing in more government, more controls than having liberalization. You now have a requirement that government will be one of the supply licensees. Mandatory. I really try to understand how this is going to help. You now have the government of the state deciding as to how the carryovers which have built up over regulatory assets that have built up will be dispersed. It's not the regulator who will do it, but the state government which will do it. And if what is happening in Delhi is an indication, surely the state government is not going to get the regulatory assets dispersed. You have the government vested with a Henry VIII clause for 5 years. For what? Unprecedented. For 5 years. You have...
What is Henry VIII clause? We are not into English history.
186.1, section 186.1. For 5 years. There is an amendment which has been brought in section 186.1. You have the regulator determining prices at every level. At every single level, from generator and right up to the last point of supply. That means free market has really no place whatever. You have the state government evolving the scheme under section 131(4)(a) for transfer. Not the regulator, not by private negotiation. It should ideally be by private negotiation and to be resolved if there is a dispute by a regulator. But the government will now step in and decide what will be the cost, what will be the value. Therefore, you now have overall greater control given to the government. And I don't think this is going to help much at all. One of the other things that was pointed out was about the government's role in regard to appointment of the regulator as well as the appellate tribunal. I think if really we are going to have the system of collegium replaced by another body for appointing Supreme Court and High Court judges, there is no reason why the selection of the chairman of the appellate tribunal and the judicial members of the appellate tribunal, as also the chairperson of each one of the state commission, should not be by that body. And the chairperson of the state commission, according to me, should be a judicial person. You should have technical members, you should have financial members, but I think you, by and large, the source of recruitment for the financial members, the technical members or the administrative members is the government. And to what extent they are independent, one has seen. Therefore, I think there is perhaps greater objectivity in a judicial member, by and large. Considering that, I think it would be better to have a judicial member, judicial person heading the state commission. These are some of the broad thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Of course, we can go into the detail, but these are matters to be discussed, and I don't want to take more time than this.
One comment on what Amit was saying. We have seen that regulators left on their own have not implemented a regime which is introduced at a national level. For example, the REC. It is now known that various regulators are revising the RPO requirements or waiving the RPO requirements in various states, and are not enforcing the REC purchase, which has resulted in about 1.8 crore RECs not being unsold. So you had a regime in which there was state level regulations which were across the states in line with the overall central scheme, but it has failed. It has failed in even what we see or perceive to be the progressive states. Now, how do you address that? The issue of calculation of cross-subsidy surcharge or the marginal method, avoidance method, this is a formula given in the tariff policy. States don't want to follow it. As a result, you have a very high transaction cost which kills open access. The appellate tribunal took a view, which is in the Supreme Court now, that look, if you want to make a departure from the policy, then you must give valid reasons. But then this valid reason, which is good for the first year, first 5 years, continues to be valid for 13 years, 12 years. So then that's where the problem is. So I think what was said, that today we have an issue of absence of regulatory will, whether it's the content of the regulator, the person who's getting appointed, or general. So I think that is the core issue that all of us are looking at. And from people who are lawyers who are practicing in that jurisdiction, I think you travel from state to state and you see in some states, yes, there is a lack of understanding. In some states you understand that they understand, but there is a lack of will to follow. So that's where the problem is. So I think we are not addressing that in this draft.
I just have a question for you. On the region, it takes it outside Orissa. So isn't there something wrong here?
So the Assad judgment was on the exchange, it was bilateral.
I know, but I'm just raising the issue that today.
I don't know whether they are a member of the exchange as a professional member.
No, let them be member. But if the margin issue is not there because it is being sold on the exchange,
the delivery point is where?
it's on the region. It's outside Orissa.
Why should it be outside Orissa?
That's
in
how-
the periphery. It means the Orissa periphery.
No,
not
it is
the
the Orissa periphery.
Orissa periphery, so it's not outside Orissa.
Okay.
So
I
Raidco's
thought
delivery
the
point
exchange is
will
on the
be.
region.
No.
It
The
will-
collective is not on the region.
No, it is interstate
So-
periphery of each state.
There are many teams in this.
Yeah, so the periphery will be the Orissa periphery. So Raidco still is home without a regulation.
Mahesh, you want to jump in? Sanjay is very happy to hear.
I just have a view that with the new amendments which are taking place, the entire industry is getting unified. The entire industry is unified with various objections in the various acts, whether it is coal ordinance or it is now electricity or even spectrum, that all companies who are competing with each other in the past are now unified in their action against the government. So I'm sure the government will wake up to it after tomorrow's result.
That's a lie. Dear friends, it was very enlightening. We listened to all the legal people, luminaries, but I want to add, enrich your knowledge with some technical aspects of the whole thing. Let me start with Mr. Sanjay's this thing. That in August 2013, I presented to the earlier minister that open access is possible even today. Let us streamline the nuts and bolts. A trader could be a de facto supplier if he can garner 200, 300 customers. Then let us have a protocol. Let him sign agreement with the DISCOM, who is the wire company, and let us start the business, because then many nuts and bolts will be straightened and we will know that that is required to be done. That I came to this conclusion after discussion with Gujarat, Tata Power and other DISCOMs. I had a meeting over weekend. But he said, I only know there is a pipeline, that is a wire, and there are various people tapping into it. They are the suppliers, and I want perfect competition. I want to have monumental changes. I am not going to negotiate anything less than a monumental change. These people will remember for a long time to come. And he shouted so loudly that the POP roof was about to fall on my head. So that is that actually happened. 2nd of August 2013. Now, with that anecdote, let me tell you.
Monumental legislative craftsmanship mishap. 13 proviso in one section. 13 provisos in one
16.
Yes.
16.
So now I tell you, sir, some of the things which I told him slightly, but number one issue was in my bound, which
No, there's a big proviso. Notwithstanding anything, government through tariff policy can do anything.
Yes,
number one issue,
So
sir.
after that, the Henry VIII clause says that for 5 years they can change anything that they want. So it doesn't matter either.
Number first issue, which was very irritable to all the ministry officials, was that, I said that the wire business will remain a monopoly, isn't it? And there was a proposal at that time to merge the distribution wire with the state STU to make a bigger state monopoly, headed of course by a bureaucrat and normally government, somebody close to the government, political lineup. I said that for new connection, for complaint breakdown, for fault removal, any billing problem, metering, issues challenging fast reader, change of load, voltage quality, interruptions, flickering, all those issues, the consumer will have his interaction with the monopoly wire company. That is where the problem lies. That is where how that problem will be addressed by all this. Because unless you change the character of the wire company to be as responsive as some of the companies in Delhi are, because outside Delhi it is much worse. If your meter is faulty, you get a wrong meter, and you had your life. So how the consumer will be benefited by all this? So nobody was ready to think about it. Then the intermediary company, I want to add to all you said, sir, that the entire power of its behavior will be prescribed by the central government later. The entire power of the PPAs of the state now will be asserted by the center. And there's nobody says on what basis, yearly basis, monthly basis, those PPA will be allocated to the new supply licenses at what time. The new supply licenses, the second, third and the fourth will become viable only if they get those cheaper PPAs and pro rata basis, on monthly basis, so that otherwise they'll have to come with new power. And then what happens to the PPAs like Bhavana Gas Power Station, where the charges are, average charge is about 12 rupees per unit because the unit doesn't run. So as you said, you don't know what cherry picking, pick and choose will take place. So just a few points. You want me to stop?
Yeah, just brief.
I will stop, boss.
No, if there's any...
No, don't back me, boss. I don't like it.
I'm just saying, उनको कंटिन्यू करने के पहले चाय का चर्चा हो रही है, वो चाय मांग रहे थे.
तो चाय पी रुक जाता हूँ.
नहीं, आप कंटिन्यू.
No, you called me, so I am speaking.
Please.
So, will the supply licensing have the right to refuse PPAs which they don't like to take? And those electricity code and the supply code, the distribution code, will there be a model code, or the entire thing each state will reinvent the wheel in terms of those codes? Because those are very elaborate codes, bigger than the grid code. So each state starts to engage a consultant and all. It will be, each state will have a different distribution supply code. Will have unnecessary diversity. And
conflict with the grid code, the national grid code.
all those things will have to be seen, And then my argument is that there are three
No, but
issues.
in this, the cross-subsidy surcharge, उसका क्या होगा for the new license?
That already you have discussed, nothing is clear about it. That is nothing is clear about it, whether how will you do it. So there are three issues, on which the prices go up. One is today I find that in the DISCOMs, the prudence check of capital cost is not properly taking place. As far as CRC is concerned, NTPC and NHPC, it is a CAG audit and all that. When you have, these various state distribution companies, the new capex prudence is not properly done. Because they don't have the staff, manpower. Because you need a massive staff to do prudence, advance approval of capex. Nothing, there is no system. Secondly, I have seen in USA, the regulator very carefully writes off the old assets which are not in use. So the capital base must be trimmed. है ना, उसका कोई हिसाब किताब ही नहीं, चेकिंग ही नहीं होती रेगुलेटर क्या, यू गिव ए सर्टिफिकेट रिलीज ऑन पेपर दैट दीज आर माय एसेट्स एंड यूज, दीज आर नॉट इन यूज, सो उनको निकाल दीजिए कैपिटल बेस से, वो नहीं होता है. थर्ड थिंग इज दैट you still have liability approach to equity. What is this bloody nonsense? I mean, you have repaid the equity to depreciation and you still want. This is okay with NTPC. The effect is very marginal, Amit, when you do it. But when DISCOMs, there is a heavy capex every year. So you pay ROE on the new capex, you continue to pay ROE on the return asset which have been repaid, and you continue to pay ROE on assets which are not in use. Then there is a very big technical question, sir. Who is today, SLDC has a big problem balancing the grid and complying with the grid code at the state periphery. How will it happen with multiple supply licenses, which are embedded in each other's territory? What is the metering scheme? Who is responsible for, his schedule versus actual deviation? There is nothing. There is no mechanism which has been put in place to ensure, although the stated objective is greater grid discipline, but I think this is a great threat to grid discipline unless worked out very clearly. I had very long discussions with Sony on that. He says we need an entire new set of infrastructure for this. And
such as what? Infrastructure for grid discipline?
I see, sir, that each new, as I see, that each new customer in future should have a smart meter of 25,000 rupees with a remote metering facility, and then integration through IT, and each supply licensee having a control room with satellite connection and telecom, where he has in real time knowledge of his actual draw by his set of consumers with respect to the power he purchased. And either he has to settle for his deviation. No, it is not a question of financial settlement. Either he has to arrange the balance sheet in real time, or that power has to be delegated to the SLDC. In UK, the whole power is with the grid operator. He buys power on behalf of all those fellows because he doesn't wait for anybody. He balances it and he just does that, and then he allocates the cost to various people. What model we are going to follow, nothing is clear. That is what I meant. And on, obviously you have pointed out, sir, that there are contradictions in clause 51D. Because in one place it says that the prices will be market determined. And then it talks of total check. So I have not really understood that. Thank you, sir.
Amit. Yeah. Your thoughts? Since you were contradicted.
I'm not contradicted at all. Everybody's agreed with what I'm saying. It's good for lawyers, not good for industry. So one time you went back and made it good for industry. That's the bottom line. You can't have a situation where you're redrafting a law 11 years down the line without considering the basic flaw. And the basic flaw is, at the base level, you have 256,000 megawatts installed capacity, you're producing 160,000, 65% available. By your own declaration from
let me tell you, sorry, you said earlier.
Please.
So that, you see, we have 256 megawatts, out of which 32,000 is renewable, which is not a replacement capacity, which is always a parallel.
Very well. Even if you take 85% of the balance.
Now second point is...
So the problem is elsewhere. Have you addressed the fuel and the transmission?
No, I am coming to that.
Okay.
Second thing is that our gas capacity around 12,000 megawatt is shut up. Third thing is our state old plants. Many of them are so expensive to run. They are being shut down. But the most important thing is that CA overestimated the demand by a yard. The actual peak demand growth has been 3.7% since 2004 up to 2015. I have calculated peak demand, but the load growth was made at 8 to 9% CAGR, and the whole capacity accordingly was created.
So here are three questions from the industry. Since you have taken the question, let me ask the question. Now I can understand old state plants, I can understand old government plants. What about IPPs who brought in the investment, whose
उनको कोयला नहीं दे रहे हैं.
तो फिर उसका कोई solution निकालिए ना.
नहीं, the-
Why are you adding more capacity without fuel?
There is no demand actually. I am telling you.
Again, why? You're still going ahead and adding capacity. Today you are adding capacity. Why aren't you not making sure?
Sir, this year,
Sir,
140 gigawatt demand was met because
Sir,
it was the actual demand.
It's irrelevant. The fact of the matter remains you are adding new capacity without addressing your bottleneck on transmission and fuel and financing.
No, and demand.
So therefore,
First thing comes
it is
demand.
irrelevant for me that there are old state plants which are not working efficiently. Why would an IPP that has come after 97, 98 or in 2004 has been asked to back down from a 83.9% PLF target of 2010 to 63%? Are you compensating for him? Please show me one order where the government has stood up and said yes.
No.
So then the rest is nonsense.
No, but
It's rocket science.
the reality is they have to restrict the whole thing by mandating long-term PPA.
Irrelevant. While you mandate
Why we
long-term
mandate?
PPA, you're simultaneously saying 63 will override 62. So how can that be long-term PPA?
I don't know.
So therefore, there are fundamental structural flaws.
Yes.
It's irrelevant. State sector is okay. You have come to a stage where you must accept two factors. Number one, since 91, India recognizes as an economic policy you need private capital, foreign and Indian. When you need private capital, you can't possibly get people to invest, and most of them having come in 2000 thereafter, and reduce their availability by force from 85% to 63% and expect them to survive. You can't expect them 12,000 megawatts of gas-fired plants be stuck and still carry on with more produce. Your mistakes have been one after the other. Naphtha, liquid fuel of the future, vanished. Gas supply, vanished. Coal, not available. Ultra mega power projects bid on the basis of imported coal, but whatever happens overseas doesn't matter. We can nationalize our coal, nobody else can. So where are we going? At the end of the day, 100 rupees invested, 80 rupees comes from bank, which is your and my money. That's stranded. So we need to address the fundamentals first. If there is capacity, why are we not evacuating? Why are we going for more capacity? Why are the banks now feeling distress? And whose money is stuck in the bank? Your and my savings. Today, tomorrow there will be a bank run, there will be a moral hazard, so Minister of Finance will go and fund it, which means you will take away from primary healthcare, potable drinking water, education, livelihood, and try and pump it to try and make these guys viable. We are just chasing our tail. It is not getting any. What to say? It's aiming for a ministerial
Nothing to
post.
say except that I think the private sector has also contributed. We've also been responsible for this mess. I think the aggressive way in which parties have been bidding, whether it's starting in Chhattisgarh or other places. Also the fact that even when NAFTA and all these gas-fired PPAs came in, if you look at the fuel supply agreement, it is all hope and trust. If we get gas, we'll supply you. Financial closure was achieved on the basis of these two-page FSAs. All these 4 gas-based plants in Andhra Pradesh. If you look at those documents, they are a joke. So I think everybody's contributed to this problem. The private sector also went through a learning process. We certainly were not sure about how to work a contract for 25 years on a certain assumption that was made. And so we are paying a price.
Does Section 63 have a future? Or should it have some changes?
They're bringing it as overriding through the tariff policy by saying 62 doesn't have a future. Now, 60 doesn't have a future, 62 doesn't exist. Where do we go there?
Yeah, I mean, whatever future, it will be through the contract. That's what they are trying to say. Laws of contract will prevail.
Can I have the mic? Yeah, I want Mahesh to No, I just wanted to raise an issue.
This brings me to the last part of this Chai Ki Charcha. And since you all are being nicely happy and like with tea, I can take some liberties. The question then comes to me as a layman is, what is the role of the private sector? Does government want private sector